We do. Mr. Larson, are we ready to go?
You are live, sir. Go for it.
Cool, thank you. It is 7 p.m. Time to call the Monday, April 3rd, 2023 Westfield, Washington Township Advisory Plan Commission meeting to order. Will staff please confirm the presence of a quorum?
Ms. Berkman? Mr. Deck?
Here.
Mr. Horkay?
Here.
Mr. Johns?
Here.
Dr. Kelleher?
Here.
Mr. Maui?
Here.
Mr. McCarty?
Here.
Mr. Schmitz?
Here.
Ms. Boljeric?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Item next, well, we have on here announce any changes. We do not have any changes. Everything is as we have previously discussed.
Correct.
So we move on to the approval of the minutes of our March 20th, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion to accept these minutes into the record?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the March 20th, 2023 meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Where are you on here? We have a motion from Matt Deck, seconded by Andre Maui. Will staff please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Deck?
Yes.
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Boljeric?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Staff would please now review the APC rules and procedures for tonight's meeting, which has only a consent agenda item of business, but 2 public hearings.
Yes, so for our items requiring a public hearing, the meeting will have the following structure. The department will summarize the petition. The petition will be given up to 15 minutes to present to the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission then can then ask some clarifying questions, followed by the opening of the public hearing. The public hearing will be closed when all interested members of the audience have had a chance to be heard, and any emails received during the meeting have been forwarded to the Plan Commission. Following the public hearing, the Plan Commission can continue to comment on the petition, and that may involve some discussion with the petitioner. For our general rules of conduct, we ask that you please not disrupt the proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private discussion, please quietly exit the room. Please silence your devices, and again, if you must answer them, please quietly exit the room. If you are attending and wish to speak for a public hearing, we do have a sign-in sheet up here by the podium, and we will have you sign in when you come up to speak. Please speak clearly into the microphone and state your name and address when you get up here. Please ensure the microphone is on as indicated by the green light on the base, and everybody present or on the call, please make sure to mute your microphone when you are not speaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our consent agenda item, the Westfield Dental Office and Bank is ready for approval. Is there a motion to approve our consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented in the staff report.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Excellent. We have a motion from Andre Maui, seconded by Jenny Kelleher. Will staff please call the roll?
Mr. Deck?
Yes.
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Boljeric?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. As indicated, no other items of business, so we are now ready to move on to our first public hearing item, petition number 2108-PUD-21, the Grand Millennium Center PUD Amendment 2. Staff will open the presentations, and then we'll hear from the petitioner.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the record, Lauren Gillingham with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening is the public hearing for the Grand Millennium Center PUD Amendment 2, an amendment to the permitted uses, general regulations, and development standards of the Grand Millennium Center PUD. In the time since you last reviewed this item a couple weeks ago at the March 20th workshop meeting, the applicant has requested changes to 2 additional standards. One to increase the maximum building height for mixed use and multifamily buildings with ground level parking. The other to remove the dwelling unit cap from mixed use district and multifamily district, and instead allow a total of 750 dwelling units between both districts. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the new additions or the overall project. David George with CRG Residential is also here to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Is that on the microphone?
Guys, there we go.
That sounds
For the
different.
record, David George, I'm an engineer with CRG Residential, and we're here tonight for Grand Millennium. And Birch Dalton is obviously the overall development landowner, and he is on a vacation, so I am not, so I am here. And we're here to speak a little bit about the Grand Millennium. The reason why this is Amendment 2 is some of the Amendment 1 pertain to the library, and then also the MOB. And because of those, it caused a change to, a request change to where the multifamily and the multi-use were shown on the previous plan. And then Lauren, do we have that? I think I can pull that up. Yes. Or just the overall where it showed the boundaries. There we go. Perfect. So on this, north is up. So in the upper left-hand corner, that's where the most of the library and then also a portion of the MOB building is located now. So that is one of the requests is to utilize some movement of the multifamily residential. And then also, it's not changing any of the total unit count. We're just asking the ability to revise those. And then if this is successful, moving on to council and then successful there, we would work on some too many S's, specific projects in order to come back and share those with the group. So right now, it's really the ability to move some of those uses, and then we'll work on our plan and come back. A couple things I wanted to highlight, Lauren, if we could go to the new bubble diagram. This is what we showed the other night, but it does have some revisions. Councilor Spiljerik, you had asked. It looked like it was more of a hard along US 31 where the multifamily was shown, so we have adjusted that, but then we just wanted to reiterate this isn't exactly where things would be. It would just be a mixture of uses when we were to come back, but we did make that change just so it's a little bit more clear on this bubble diagram based on your comments. Again, we're here for that purpose. I also asked for another change, and that is and I didn't know if it was a big change or not, but I just asked for 5 stories to be for the multifamily, because my understanding is anything in this area you wanted to have a little bit more density. So it was just simply a request. We had 4 stories, and I just changed it to 5, because if you do that and you have a situation where you have a parking garage, you might have a parking garage of 1 or 2 levels and then 4 stories of residential above that. We don't have a plan in place. It's just that allows us to have that ability to look at that option. So I just wanted to update that we do have that on the bubble sketch. That's the reason for the 5 stories. And then the multifamily and multi-use in the previous, in the current PUD, it had certain amounts and they were in segmented areas, and our request is just simply to be able to move those, but keep the same overall unit count. And with that, I would step back and answer any questions after the public hearing.
Thank you. We will go into the public hearing first. Open the public hearing at 7:09 p.m. Is there anybody in the room that has requested to speak? No. Quick reminder to anybody that may be attending virtually that we need to have emails quickly sent to planners@westfield.in.gov. We'll hold off to 7:11 to give a potential virtual attendee an opportunity to comment. Then I'll close the public hearing if there are none. It is 7:11. Is there anything that has populated our inbox? No? Okay. Public hearing is closed. Commissioner comments, or questions for staff or the petitioner?
I have a lot of them, but I can hold off and let others go first.
Okay, and see if they steal some of your thunder so you'll have less? Maybe? Anyway,
I have
Another
a couple-
taker?
I have a couple of questions.
Dr. Kelleher.
And some of them are for staff, I think. The changes that are being asked, first of all, the bubble diagram is not part of this amendment. Should it be? The bubble diagram is not part of this amendment? At least when you open the ordinance, clean ordinance, it doesn't have it in there.
Oh, no, I did not add it to the actual ordinance file. I figured I'd do that for the final council.
Well, I mean.
I
if
can make
it's a-
that change, sorry.
I guess the question is, if it's part of the PUD, if it's the new concept plan, it seems like it should be included in the amendment to the PUD. And I guess that's for Pam and staff to think about, but
Yeah.
I think that's an important part of what we talked about.
No, that's a really good question. The petitioner, and then Pam and Kevin and I have not discussed if the bubble diagram is intended to replace the concept plan, or if it was more as kind of a visual aid, to kind of explain just the general idea of the different uses.
Okay.
discuss
Well, for
that.
me at least, and I don't speak for anybody else here, if we're going to change the concept plan to a new bubble diagram, it should be changed in the as an part of the amendment to the PUD. And that's just me. I don't know if it's the right thing to do or not, but otherwise, the original PUD still has the whole area as commercial. So if we decide to send this on with a positive recommendation, it seems like that bubble diagram is an important update to the original concept plan. Second question, in the original PUD, and I don't know if we can bring that up, that concept plan on the original PUD.
Did you want the concept plan or the original PUD, the text?
The concept plan in the original PUD, or
Right.
at least the most recent one we've been talking about. That one, yes, thank you very much. In the original one, which is here, there were to be, in the mixed-use area, which is to the north, there were to be a maximum of 250 multifamily. And in the multifamily district, which is to the right, in the brown, there were to be a maximum of 500. And as I recall, when this was presented years ago, that mixed use was going to be like commercial with residential on top. It wasn't written that way in the PUD, but that is how it was presented to us. That's why there was a lesser number of multifamily up there. Now, in combining the total number, the 250 and the 500, to make it 750, those could be placed in basically anywhere that multifamily is allowed. That's correct, Pam? So they could all be in this multifamily district.
So part of this is expanding the mixed-use district and the multifamily district. So if you look into the revised ordinances, it has some provisions of the multifamily district. So just standalone residential, no mixed-use commercial aspect can expand into the commercial area north of the drain.
Right. Not geographically, just means the use or the units.
The district itself. So the uses and the development standards, and essentially copy and paste this into
Into the
part of
commercial.
this. Yeah,
Right.
to replace. And then the mixed-use district can expand throughout either of these commercial areas, both north and south of the drain. So instead of basically having 500 units here, 250 units here, since there's now added flexibility with how the different districts can interact with each other, the idea is, why don't we extend that flexibility to the unit count as well?
Okay, so there could still be multifamily up in the mixed-use district that we have existing. I mean, there's still acreage
No.
there, so it still could be. So there's 750 total. They could be in this multifamily in the brown without expanding the borders. They could still be in, up to 250 could be in the mixed-use area in the northwest.
I believe it's written so it
yes.
can only expand into the commercial
Yes,
district.
so what this PUD amendment is doing, it's not permitting multifamily in the commercial district, it's allowing the mixed-use district to be expanded further,
Okay.
which would then shrink the commercial district.
Okay, I got it.
But yes, you're correct that they're having the unit count go amongst all of the area instead of dividing it 500 here, 250 here.
Right.
They can spread it out more evenly amongst the entire area. They're still bound by their maximum building heights and setbacks and all that, and that east side is pretty encumbered. I don't think they could get all 750 units over there.
Right, right. No, I just, that makes it clear then. Can we go to the proposed bubble plan then? Okay, so we're talking about expanding the mixed-use area to the south, from there to that little area right along 31. And within that area, there could be multifamily. Is that not correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And there could be multifamily along Westfield Boulevard and multifamily, of course, in the original place. So the way it is currently written, and I know that there was a lot of discussion about not allowing more multifamily along 31, but the way it is currently written, there could be multifamily along 31 because it is designated as a mixed-use area. Is that correct?
There could be. They could expand it all the way down to the Anna Kendall. If you wanted that further restricted, that could be something added to the ordinance if the petitioner's in agreement that there can't be multifamily within X number of feet of US 31. But I believe in that bubble diagram, since they have multifamily listed and they have mixed use, and some of that mixed use is south of the drain, I'm not sure that mixed use would mean mixed with multifamily. That would be a question for Mr. George.
Well, I mean, in the PUD, the original PUD, it says mixed use, and the uses include multifamily.
Yes.
Yeah, so the original PUD, if I could go back in time and rewrite it, I would, because it is a little bit confusing. So multifamily, so there's a multifamily district and a mixed-use district. The mixed-use district requires that, you can have a multifamily building as long as the first floor is commercial. So you have residential and commercial. You have also the multifamily district, which does not have that required commercial component.
Right.
It can be the
Okay.
standalone. So in trying to kind of draw the distinction between the two uses and what can be required where, or what can be permitted where, the standalone multifamily without the commercial component is only allowed on the north side of the drain.
Right. Okay.
Right.
And the mixed-use area north of the drain that can have multifamily in it has to be above retail.
Yes, in the mixed-use district.
In the
If
mixed-use
they
district.
choose to expand the multifamily district, it would not have to include retail.
Right,
Right.
okay. So I got
But
it.
as I read this, if I can jump in, because
No,
this
please.
is the heart of what my one question was too, is in section 2 where it talks about permitting multifamily to expand, it only limits it to be north of the Anna Kendall drain, and it can go therefore right up to 31, which is what I wanted to restrict, is not necessarily even distance, but not have it be the closest building to 31. Like you needed to have mixed use between the highway and the multifamily. And I don't see that restricted in there right now, where the multifamily could go right up to 31.
Right, thank you. That's the way I read it, and
There's no restriction, I mean, and if we don't tie something with that concept planned, and having that first building there in the mixed use, there's no protection. It also, with this language, could be townhomes in that location, it seems,
so,
as a permitted use by right. Correct?
That is correct. I do not recall if there was any kind of language about townhomes only being permitted on one side of Westfield Boulevard, but that could definitely be added.
Right, those could be added to the mixed use. Second clarification is the multifamily uses in all districts, the building materials are being modified to require a minimum of 40% masonry on each building facade. I don't know what it was in the original. If they followed the regular, our UDO multifamily standards, it would have been 75%. And we just had a case before us where that was kind of an issue. So they're dropping the masonry requirement to 40% from, I don't know what it was before.
It was 60%.
60, so they're dropping from 60 to 40% on the masonry. Also, they are modifying our multifamily standards to allow for a flat roof with 0 inches of overhang, which is another issue I have. And they are also, under landscaping standards, modifying the minimum lot landscaping standards to say they shall not apply to multifamily uses. So those are some pretty big changes. And I'll leave the floor to anybody else.
Thank you. Others want to jump in?
You guys covered a lot of them.
Yeah, all right. Why don't you go ahead and proceed, Cindy?
And take a shot at a few more. The other uses have character exhibits. You're adding the townhouse use, but there's no character exhibits that I saw. So I'm not quite sure what character is going to be applied. And my same concern about the multifamily having the flat roofs with no eaves and all that would, of course, be a concern as well with the townhomes, if that standard applied. In section 4.1, I'm kind of confused about this 750 units because it's under the MF2 district, but you're applying it to all units. So I'm not quite sure why it's under just this MF2 section 4.1. Anyway, because that would be the mixed use as well. And let's see. And one more. Oh yeah, the lot landscaping and things like that. When you're trying to exempt yourself and not knowing how this townhome standard would be applied and where, it's hard to imagine just saying that they shouldn't have any lot landscaping. There would be no minimum. It's a concern for me. Those are major ones. You guys covered everything.
Okay. Other comments? Victor, Mike?
I think most of my comments have been covered already.
Okay.
One of the big concerns is the masonry requirement, dropping that. We've had a pretty robust conversation recently at the council level, and we've been trying to improve our quality and not decrease it. So that's of some concern.
Okay.
My only comment.
Mr. Deck, anything? Mr. McCarty?
Yeah, I think we covered a lot. My main concern would just be, of course, not wanting apartments directly abutting up to 31. In terms of the architectural requirements, yes, in terms of not necessarily wanting to lower the standards to 40%, but I'd be interested to hear why the reduction from 60 to 40 and where that might be made up in, say, unique architecture. Because obviously when we look at the Yard, Midtown, other projects that you've been a part of, there's kind of, I don't want to use the word iconic, but iconic architecture that's used that I could see a justification for us lowering the requirement of masonry from 60 to 40 if then you're using, certain roof lines or glass walls, whatever it is like that to make it a real unique destination. So I'd just like to hear the justification with that. But again, just to go back of not wanting apartments directly next to 31. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a virtual commissioner this evening, Mr. Schmitz. Floor is yours. Do you have anything that you would like to bring up tonight for staff or the petitioner?
Well, it's been mentioned. I would just echo those other commissioners who had the concern about having apartments close to 31, and kind of what Mr. Maui said, that having a building between the multifamily and 31 would be, even if it's a mixed-use building with just one floor of commercial, that would be preferable to me. And I agree about the, at least with the masonry, at least either bump it back up or some justification for it based on materials, as Victor said. But that's really it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I won't belabor these same issues because I share those concerns as well. Well, he spoke up earlier. Do you have more, Andre?
Yeah, just to touch base, as far as those architectural standards, the flat roof with zero overhang that was mentioned, I actually don't have an issue with that west of Westfield Boulevard because it does then give it a more commercial, frankly, look.
Yeah.
That may be something that has to be designated because I don't think that would fit on the east side of Westfield Boulevard. I don't know what the intent was there, but if you could perhaps separate where that would apply, then I'd be okay with it.
And one line of thinking, I certainly see what you're getting at. It might be preferable to have flat roofs to the west of Westfield Boulevard for that leading example of more commercial-ish kind of appearance as opposed to residential. So do you have some comments you'd like to respond to our discussions with staff and ourselves? Please help us out.
Great, I appreciate the time. Let me just start kind of the back first. As far as the masonry, the only thing we were trying to do was from 60 to 40. It just gives us a little bit more flexibility with different types of siding and other things. And on other projects we've worked on in different areas, that's kind of the range that we've had. If it's something it's very important, we can make 60 work. I can just make it easy. That's probably an easy one that, I'll just use 40% to work through, siding and other types of things. So that's maybe an easy one. As far as the flat roof, that's exactly what we were trying to do. If we need to make a wording that is just on the west side of 31, or I'm sorry, west side of Westfield, that's one area that we were really trying to do is maybe you get, I hate to say modern or just, because obviously we'd be back before you have specific buildings and things, but that would give us the ability to try to craft something that would be a little bit more modern. And when you have that, you don't have a roof on top that's like a pitched roof, like a house. Obviously, the east side of Westfield Boulevard, we would, with the neighbors nearby. So that's the reason for that wording. So as you guys, some of you guys kind of picked up on more on the west side than the east side of Westfield Boulevard, we would make that commitment because that's exactly what we were trying to do. Councilor Spiljeruk, we didn't have a character exhibit for the townhomes. We can, if it's approved tonight, we could add something between now and council. If that's an acceptable way, I didn't add that. It wasn't to get out of something, and to be a little bit more clear, the townhomes were just an area as an option on the east side of Westfield Boulevard. So if we need to make a little bit more clear on that language through a motion, that would be fine too. That's exactly the area. It wasn't to let that shift in on the other side. Sorry, bear with me a minute. The last thing I wanted to speak up about a little bit is I don't have a specific plan, but one thing that we've kind of in our shop looked at is not having residential on 31, the entire frontage. And actually, Lauren, if we could pull up the, probably the bubble diagram. Yes. So can you guys see on the left-hand side where the MOB is? So yes. So does this work? Oh, good. So right now, this is what's happening. You've got the library, you've got the MOB, and then also you have the drive that will probably come through where this dotted line is. And then our idea probably for some type of multi-use where we would not have residential on the first level. You would have residential above that, some type of nice frontage along Westfield Boulevard and maybe a little bit over into this area. So I don't know if there's something in the motion where we could say a certain distance down. So in other words, you kind of force us into an outlot, if that makes sense. I hate to say outlot, but this would be another, like a lot that would be an MOB. That would give us a little bit of the flexibility to do kind of, I think, where we'd like to go to present something to you if this is successful and we were to come back with a project. So all the other things, I think I can make work, the comments, but that's one, if I could respectfully request crafting some type of language that would help us when we come back.
Landscaping was discussed as well.
Landscaping, yes. Apologize. Some of the landscaping, we did not mean to get out of landscaping on the townhome, so if there needs to be a motion, the townhomes adhere to testing.
We are back. I'm not sure where the audio yeah.
Okay,
Not sure where the
I'll
audio
start over
disappeared.
with.
So
I think
try
the
to pick
comment-
up.
Yeah, I think the comment, we were going through the landscaping portion. And number one, the townhomes are not trying to get out of that, so if that needs to be in the motion, that the townhomes would adhere to the landscaping standards, whether it's MF2 or if it's a different designation. And then also, we were not trying to limit, I guess, the multi-use, the multi-family area versus what it was in the original PUD. So if there's a language in there, we can clarify that. Because even when I was reading through that, there's certain, there's 8 feet for, buffer standards around the foundation and things like that. So that was not an intent. I think originally, there were certain areas like the multi-use where it had a little bit, I wouldn't say less landscaping, it was just more, that was more of the urban area, where you had a little bit more sidewalk and things like that going around, versus maybe a suburban area, kind of like our project at 161st and Spring Mill, something like that. So that might have been the original language. And again, I know this is a little bit clunky. None of us wrote it, but we're all here. So I guess in a nutshell, we're not trying to limit a lot of the landscaping from what was originally in the PUD for the multi-use and the multifamily. And then also with the new addition of townhomes, we would commit that whatever the landscaping is for that, whether it's a certain, like an MF2 or whether it's another designation for a residential, we would adhere to that. And if that needed to be included in the motion, that would be fine.
All right. Staff, typically when something is close and we're at a meeting such as this, at the end of the staff report where the department comments are identified, action, hold a public hearing at the April 3rd, 2023 Plan Commission meeting, something that's close that might be anticipated to get a recommendation, you'd usually move on and say something to that effect. You didn't tonight. And there's sounding like a lot of complications to a motion to try to wrap all this up. So I'm thinking we're not done enough to do that.
I think that was the expectation, yes.
Okay,
I agree.
much as we'd like to, or
Can I give a wrap-up? My initial thing were mostly questions, not statements of how I felt. I guess I feel the bubble diagram needs to be included as part of the PUD. I think that in discussing the mixed use or the multifamily, if there's going to be a difference in the type of multifamily, the original, which is brown, and the multifamily on the west side of Westfield Boulevard, maybe they need to be labeled as multifamily 1 and multifamily 1, or area A and multifamily area B, because that's the only way we can separate things from them. I am not willing to give up the landscaping standards for multifamily, especially in the area next to the residential. If the area west of Westfield Boulevard may be a little different, then I would be open to hearing some kind of proposal on what landscaping might be over there. I think Andre made a good comment when he talked about flat roofs being acceptable on the west side of Westfield Boulevard, but not in the multifamily on the east side of Westfield Boulevard. So I think that needs to be made clear if that's what, if you want to use flat roofs. The masonry, I think you addressed. And again, I think somehow, for me at least, a better definition of if the multifamily is also going to be included in that mixed-use area, because right now we've talked about not wanting anything right up against 31, but currently the mixed-use definition in the ordinance, in the original one, allows multifamily in that. So maybe we need a mixed-use area 1 and a mixed-use area 2. You know, I don't know how to best make this clear, because this PUD is rather convoluted, and we're making it more convoluted unless we back up and try to separate some things. There's two other things that I didn't mention initially. Foundation plantings shall apply, however, planters may be substituted for planting beds when necessary. Does this apply to the entire PUD? Or just, it's not clear?
So yes, that would apply to the, well, let me check actually. It would. That would apply to the entire PUD, and that is something that is actually just putting into terms something that we already kind of interpret our UDO. So,
I'm sorry, say.
Yeah, we already see this happening in some cases. We have allowed planters to substitute a full planting bed where there's circumstances that make it more difficult. So we already do this in practice.
But not for the entirety.
Yeah, we usually don't see that for the entirety of a building. It's usually in select areas.
Right, often commercial, or and this one basically says,
when necessary, and who determines what necessitates making that change is a concern that I would have here. How do we limit it to whatever the legitimate necessary interference or design element, whatever it is that might make?
Yeah, we can discuss with the petitioner on what that is for. I know one place we've seen it become an issue is with standalone garage buildings in multifamily, because they don't have room to put a planting bed with all the garage doors, so they'll put some sort of planter. But we can get with them on the intent and make sure we clarify that on whether it's certain buildings or certain instances.
sure.
We'll see what we can do.
And I don't have a problem with planters in the right places, but the way this read to me, this is a modification of the entire PUD, and it sounds like foundation plantings in the entire PUD could be planters, so that was what kind of bothered me. I don't have a problem with them in appropriate places, but not as a blanket. And this is a question for staff. Required parking spaces shall be modified to require 1.5 off-street parking spaces per dwelling unit. Is that acceptable to staff? I have no idea. What is it now, 2?
So yeah, so that was actually a recommendation that staff made, that along with the on-site landscaping. So that's something that's very, very common in our multifamily PUDs.
Okay.
Either it's written directly into the PUD, or the multifamily project has to later come in for a variance or some kind of PUD amendment, just because 1.5 spaces per unit is closer to
Okay, I
what's
don't have a
needed.
problem with
Yeah.
that. I was
Yeah, and
just
that is a
questioning.
more global
Yeah.
change we're looking at. Looking at other communities, 2 is very high. I think one other community might require 2, and the rest do have something lower, or else they're by number of dwelling units,
Right,
number of
okay.
bedrooms, I mean.
So that's on
so
your
we're
list
looking at
of, that's
options.
on your list of UDO?
That's on our list, yeah.
Modifications?
And that one has been researched and is
Okay, all right.
ready to go, hopefully.
Okay.
And just to clarify in the on-site landscaping requirements, that's another one that is commonly waived, either waived from in multifamily PUDs or varied from. So the multifamily on-site landscaping requirement requires 1 shade tree and 1 evergreen tree per dwelling unit, which is fantastic for large lot, suburban, kind of park
Right.
feeling apartment buildings, not necessarily for a pedestrian walkable area such as this. So when you get into 250 unit buildings, 250 trees is just really not doable. So that's why the waiver was in there.
Unless you want a residential development with a lot of open space and
Yeah.
things like that.
But less walkable, because then it's a lot less dense.
Right, okay, that's it. I'm done.
Anybody else want to make any further comments? Seeing none, I think, it sounded like you had a goal of trying to wrap this up. I don't think we were able to achieve that, because there are quite a few things that
We
need
want
to
to
be
be a partner, we
addressed.
want to have a win-win, so we're here for the long term, and guess we'll see you at the next meeting.
Sounds like a good plan. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, so the next meeting is a workshop meeting.
True.
So we need to discuss how we would want this to move forward. This project was submitted under the old rules. We did have one previous project that was submitted under the old rules that we did waive the rule to vote on at a workshop meeting. That was iBeach, right after we implemented workshop meetings. So that would be an option with this, since it does cross over between the old and new rules. Or we could wait until the next regular meeting to look at a vote, which would be the first meeting in May.
So, question for Mr. George. Birch is unavailable right now. I presume he needs to be part of all of what gets put through the process to become the revised submittal. If he's traveling on spring break or whatever, you're going to have trouble making the next deadline anyway. For us waiving a rule to be able to do this at a workshop meeting, it seems like this is going to be the first meeting of May.
Is there a way?
Is that a
Sorry,
problem?
I didn't mean to interrupt. Is there a way to keep it a little bit fluid in the sense that we could come to the workshop meeting, we're going to present, just like we would if there's space available, and then if the commission is comfortable, I guess, have the option to vote, or say, no, we'd like for you to make a couple more things, and then we'll see you at the next meeting. Maybe something like that?
What else might be on our upcoming agenda for the next workshop meeting? Anything?
Nothing.
I don't think we would have any outside projects on that. I don't think we have anything outstanding, unless there's something I'm unaware of with some of the continued items. This would be potentially the only outside item on the workshop.
All right.
I guess my personal feeling is it doesn't matter to me which meeting you choose based on your schedule. I think the question is how long it's going to take to make some of these changes, and that will kind of depend on staff working with you and Birch. I think it's fairly clear what we're looking at or looking for. So I will leave it up to all of you to decide which.
Yeah, to me, it seems like if you don't have all your players available to tackle this at the office tomorrow or Wednesday, is there going to be enough time to get all of this ready for our next meeting? And we can hold it open for you if you can do it.
That's why I said if acceptable, maybe a little bit, I hate to use the word fluid, but just, we'll be ready if we're ready, and we'll come and present. And even if it's just to present, to update you on where we are, then either it's if you are comfortable, then you could vote, or go to the next meeting, and at least that way we're, at least in my mind, I'm still looking at moving.
Yeah, so I think we can work together this week and see where we are. To get on that agenda as far as having a final revised ordinance, we would really need by Friday, so we have early next week to work on a staff report. If it's just coming back for workshop, we can push that out a little bit because we don't do a staff report for a workshop meeting. We'll just provide an update of changes. So we can kind of discuss where we're going later in this week and see what we think we can do.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
I
fine
think-
with that.
I think the important thing is whichever meeting you come to, I mean, I think we need to be not having another meeting and another meeting.
Right, that's kind of my point of, don't rush back if we're only going to be talking too much about the same thing and have to go yet another meeting. Understand? So I think the direction ought to be fairly understood where our concerns are, and do what you can to get them addressed. If you can do it in time for the workshop meeting, great. If you can't, we'll see you in May.
Yep, understood.
And we'll wait to hear from staff on how your exchanges go. Okay, so, all right, thank you. Our other public hearing this evening is petition 2304-PUD-03, Urban Apples PUD Amendment 1. Staff will introduce, and then the petitioner can make their comments.
Alrighty, so the item before you this evening is an amendment to the Urban Apples PUD in order to extend deadlines related to the completion of building improvements and installation of landscaping and other items along Spring Mill Road. It is up for public hearing tonight. And if interested, you may waive the workshop meeting. Matt Skelton of Church, Hiddle, and Antrim is here tonight to speak on the project. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Plan Commission. For your record, my name is Matt Skelton with Church, Hiddle, and Antrim, with offices at 116 North Union Street here in town. With me this evening from Urban Apples is owner Noah Herron, behind me. This item did receive zoning approval from the Plan Commission and Council last year as an agritourism destination. And, pardon me, I got a frog in my throat. In the PUD ordinance, the main building, the Vine building, located here, was required to have its external improvements completed by February, and that has in fact happened. The amendment before you does not propose any substantive changes to the PUD or the plan. It merely would propose to adjust some of the dates, as Lauren mentioned. The staff report, I think, actually very succinctly and very clearly summarizes this request, and I won't cover it again. I'm assuming you've seen it. It's at the top of page 2 of your staff report in a chart. But I did think that it might help if you could put up the next slide. It's right below. Can you zoom in a little bit? Sorry. It looked better on my computer. So just to explain what you're looking at, so the items, there we go. The items that are in bold, which are number 12, number 14, number 18, and number 19, match up with the items in your staff report on page 2. So those are the items that have deadlines in the PUD associated with them. The only difference is the entry feature, fencing, and landscaping is all lumped into one timeline, one line item on this chart. In your staff report, they're separated. Secondly, the items that are located in this gold color are items that really require us to rely on the performance of others, and this sometimes involves the city, sometimes involves utility companies, sometimes in this instance, Silverthorne. And we have been working very
I have a light again, I have microphone, so you should too, hopefully.
testing. All right.
All right, let's pick it up where we left off.
Okay, so I'll start this. This is a more extensive chart that kind of shows the bigger picture of the items that need to happen prior to these deadlines that are proposed in the amendment before you. And we are deeply involved in these, of course, right now since Q1 is over. And by the end of Q2, we just received written confirmation from Silverthorne as of Friday of what their infrastructure extension plans are. And it looks like they should be able to make good on this Q2 installation of the water main extension, the sewer main extension, and then we can do our work. But we've been kind of in limbo on that item, and each of these items, as you may occur to you, they can overlap a little bit. Like one might be able to start as the other one is completing, but the line item before really has to be pretty close to done before the next one can really start. And so we've tried to map this out visually so you can see what all is involved. But we believe, knowing what we know now, that all the deadlines that are proposed in this amendment are reachable, and it's shown here in this chart. We've worked closely with Silverthorne, as I mentioned. Some of the work items that are shown on this exhibit may actually be done in cooperation with Silverthorne. Like, for instance, some of the roadway improvements may be done by the same contractor. Some of the landscaping improvements may be done by the same contractor. So we're coordinating our schedules with their schedules to optimize as well, but they've been helpful to work with. And then we have also been in contact with Sundown Gardens, our neighbor to the north, and they said that they were fine to have us report to you that they have no concerns regarding this proposal. And as a matter of fact, they even mentioned they're having similar delay problems with their project in Bargersville right now for their second store. So with that, that concludes my presentation. If anybody has any questions, we're happy to respond to them now or after the hearing.
All right, so we have heard from staff, we've heard from the petitioner. This does require a public hearing, so at least have to open it for a moment. If there's anybody here, we'll start a public hearing at 7:55. Is there anybody in the room that is here to speak on this? If not, we will wait for a minute or two to see if there are any virtual attendees. Reminder to anybody that might be attending virtually, Westfield, to planners@westfield.in.gov is where you need to send a comment if you're going to make one. While we're waiting to see if there are any comments, the staff report shows that dates go out as far as June of '26. I assume there's more off the right side of the screen that takes us all the way there. Is our inbox still empty? I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. It's 7:57, almost 7:58. So, questions or comments from Plan Commission members for staff or the petitioner?
Have the improvements to the Vine building been completed as shown in the ordinance?
The exterior improvements to the Vine building have been completed, yes.
How about the interior?
We don't have a C of O yet. It's not finished. It's ongoing. It's unlikely that it will open before the end of the year, or that it would be completed before the end of the year.
Any other questions or comments? Well, the staff report did not specifically elaborate as we had discussed with the last item. Lauren has mentioned that this would be one that if we were inclined, we could go ahead and send a recommendation to council.
I have one question.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm fine with along the road. I realize that's going to be difficult, and you're going to be moving along fairly quickly with that in 2024, I think. My question is about the orchard on the south side, and I realize Somerset or Silverthorne or whoever there is going to be tearing that up, and you're working on that. But it's a fairly large area. Is it possible that some of those trees can be started, or is that not?
Well, it's possible. The idea was to not plant something that might have the potential to get hurt during the construction season. So right now, we're probably looking at an April 2024 planting of the orchard.
Okay.
And here's, so what's known now that could not have been known back when we went through this before was that there was some clearing done on the arbor site that was not planned. And
I have pictures.
as a result, they are agreeing to do a lot of other installations, and some mounding work will be done to help until those trees mature, kind of soften or create some space. Sure. And so that work needs to really be sourced from both sides. And so I'm not saying it's not possible that you could plant some, but we would prefer not to do that. Yeah.
Thanks. I didn't know there was going to be mounding and some other things, so
yeah.
They're going to have to be working in an area outside of just the area they're redoing.
Our agreement with Arbor is about like 95% there.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I don't recall the number of trees. I do remember that we discussed it, and the site plan that had all the dots on it was going to be the right number, whatever it is. The apples that will be produced from these trees and used in the cidery, is that something that, are they mature enough? I don't know enough about apple trees. Are they mature enough in a year that there will be?
It's not a year.
I didn't think it would be, so I'm just wondering, when does this actually become more
if we
fully
test
functioning
Noah,
on site?
if we test Noah, he can tell us, but I seem to recall it was it 5 years? It's 5 years.
I figured it was a longer time than one by a long shot. So
the ones by Spring Mill are in and have been in, and they're there now. The ones that are in the
southwest corner,
back corner, or the south side, will be installed after after the grading is completed, and that includes our site grading too, actually.
So at the onset, cidery operations will be from product brought in for
Yes.
at least a couple of years, maybe even longer.
Well, I suspect there will always be something brought in. I mean, it's, most cideries don't use exclusively their own apples.
I'm okay.
If there's no other questions or comments, how do we feel about sending a recommendation? Is there somebody that would like to offer a motion?
If we do that, you first need to motion to waive the
Oh,
workshop
that's
meeting.
true, yeah.
Yeah. Motion to waive the workshop meeting?
Second.
Thank you. So a motion from Victor, where's Victor in my list? Motion and seconded by Matt Deck. Will staff please call the roll?
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Boljaric?
Yes.
Mr. Deck?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, so that is dispensed with now. We are ready to go ahead and move on for a recommendation to council.
I'll make
I
a
would-
motion to send 2304 PUD 03, the Urban Apples Amendment 1, with a favorable recommendation to council.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
So we have a motion from Matt Deck and a second by Jenny Kelleher. Staff, please call the roll on this one, please.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Boljaric?
Yes.
Mr. Deck?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. Three items on our agenda are continued, taking us down to reports and comments. Any comments from Plan Commission members that they would like to make? Downtown update is, now there's a website out there we can all go look at and enjoy if you haven't seen that already. If you don't subscribe to the Monday Travel Westfield email, that was linked in there today. Council liaison, do we have a report of the last rather brief council meeting?
I guess I can do that. We had a very, very brief council meeting. There was no old business, there was no new business. So we had some comments and passed the claims, and that was it. It was a quick one, Bob.
I thought it was kidding when I saw that on the website that you were going to meet for those items. But I saw that you did. There was a BZA meeting. Is there a report that Mr. Schmitz can give us remotely, or is this going to be Mr. McCarty's responsibility tonight?
Well, actually, we didn't have a meeting.
Oh, you didn't? I thought you did.
Yeah, I think next week. Next week we'll meet.
All right, moving on then. Plat Committee has very little business, so we have not met, and the next meeting is already canceled. So when we get busier, that committee will actually have to start meeting frequently, hopefully, but that just isn't the case right now. Community Development Department, any words of wisdom for us tonight?
No, I think we're good. So we will see you potentially at next workshop meeting. If Grand Millennium is not ready, we'll have to see what we have internally, if we have anything ready to go. Kevin is out this week for spring break, so it'll be next week before we determine that. But if we happen to not have a second Plan Commission meeting this month, we'll see you in May.
I don't think anybody up here would be all that disappointed, honestly. We enjoy this, but hey. All right, we are now ready for a motion to adjourn. If anybody is ready to offer that,
I make a motion to adjourn.
thank you.
Second.
Motion from Dr. Kelleher, seconded by Victor McCarty. And because we have a remote member, we do have to have a roll call. Staff, please.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Boljaric?
Yes.
Mr. Deck?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
You're adjourned.
Okay, 8:06 PM.